HorrorDeconstruction.
What's up, everybody? It's the HorrorDeconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, but most likely on YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that thumbs up icon. Hit that bell. Subscribe. Let everybody know about the show. With your host, Komp, and this solo deconstruction, we are talking the film Fear Street, Part 3, 1666. The origins of Sarah Fear's curse are finally revealed as history comes full circle on a night that changes the lives of the Shady Siders forever. Directed by Lee Yaniak, written by Phil Graziadele, Lee Yaniak, and Kate Treffy, starring Kiana Madeira, Ashley Zuckerman, Jillian Jacobs, as well as everybody else. So, Benjamin Flores Jr., Julia Rewall, all those people. So this is the third part in the Fear Street trilogy that just came out on Netflix. First one being 1994, the other one being 1978, and then this one obviously 1666, which takes place obviously in the past, showing the through a flashback, an extended flashback, the trials and tribulations of Sarah Fear. I'm not going to go into major spoilers in here, but I got to say that rarely do you see a horror trilogy, a recent horror trilogy even, that is well made, like the Fear Street trilogy. 1994 was sort of an R-rated version of Goosebumps. Part 2 was a sort of update on films like Friday the 13th as well as Sleepaway Camp. And this film takes the period route, which is stuff I can't say. Well, I guess sort of The Witch is the only thing that I can sort of say is close to it. I don't know how true to the dialogue it is as it is The Witch was. But I will say this. I was never really looking forward to this sort of period drama film. I do like period horror films, but there's something about, witch horror films personally I'm not really interested in, but that obviously I don't speak for a lot of people because a lot of witch films have stayed relevant through this time. And this one is a pleasant surprise for myself in that it keeps the quality level quite high for this series and is probably the best out of the trilogy. So they actually finished on a strong note. And like I read off of Twitter, somebody noted that it was rare to see a female director getting the opportunity to make a trilogy of horror films, and they don't know if they'll see it again. And I hope they do see it again because Lee Yaniak is very talented as a director, and she really pulled all this together. Obviously, with the help of a crew and a cast that really put all their efforts into it. And I think that they really did something special with this trilogy, and it wasn't bullshit. It didn't pull any punches. It's actually pretty gory. I was surprised at one specific gory sequence that happens midway through the film. So I'm not going to get into spoilers, but obviously it does jump between. It does the first focus, like the first hour of the film, focuses on the 1600s and the story of Sarah Fear. And then the latter half actually goes back to 1994 as a part 2 to it, even with the title credits. So I'm surprised they didn't make this a 4-part, like a quadrilogy type of film. But I guess they decided that 3 was enough and not to drag it. So I think, and plus it would have been confusing to call it Fear Street 1994 Part 2, Part 4, or some shit like that. But I will discuss a little bit about the 1600s parts. I can't go into detail about how true to life the dialogue is for back then, but everybody speaks with a certain accent. I don't know if they really cared about the accent. The accents were fine. For me, I don't know the past, so I can't really talk about that at that point, but it was the language was a little bit maybe not too modern where they're using catchphrases or anything like that, but it's relatable enough for us to understand anybody who who wasn't fostered in old English dialogue. And I think that having Kiana Madeira, now she's back in the lead again in the third film, as she wasn't in the second really. She is obviously taking over. She's living almost like Quantum Leap in the body of Sarah Fear, who played by Elizabeth Scopel for a couple of scenes. And we see that all the familiar actors from the first film in 1994 come back, as well as some characters from 1970 78 or 76. I keep forgetting which one it is. But they keep coming back. These actors come back as, I guess, themselves 300 years in the past. And it's interesting to see how, these kids go out to have this bacchanal night. Not really, doing crazy stuff, but they get high on berries. There's a local madwoman that was driven out of the town, this Puritan town, who I believe is the same mother of Ruby, who was one of the Back from the Dead slashers. They didn't go into any histories of other slashers like they did in 1978, but they did have a pretty good villain for this, like a villain reveal that I thought was really good because I didn't recognize the actor as they were playing somebody else. Very good villain reveal, good solid villain, solid premise for what they do. I don't know if it's solid that the devil will make a pact with someone so sort of insignificant that, and then a witch can sort of overpower the devil's power. But whatever, this is a fantasy film. It's a fantasy horror film. I will say that it does. I think that I like that this is a trilogy. I think if this film had been cut down to sort of a 2.5 hour, 2 hour and 15-minute film, truncating 1978 and then truncating a part of this 1600s, it probably would have been one of the best horror singular films made in recent years. But I think it did a service by having it as a trilogy. But it could have been a really interesting LGBT horror film because we are back to this relationship between these two young ladies, as we see that Kiana as Sarah Fear in the past is back to her relation, because she's living the life that Sarah Fear had, and Sarah Fear also had a relationship with, I guess, ye old Hannah Miller. So I don't know if Sarah Fear is pissed at her girlfriend and throughout her lives now has come back as somebody else, and I don't know. I don't know if what the bloodlines or the namesakes, if they keep continuing because let's say Sheriff Good's family continues, so he's still there. His family's still around, kicking and screaming, and but I don't know about Fear's family because I don't know if Fear is directly related. I guess Fear is directly related to the young lady from the first film who is living through her eyes in this one, because her brother's similarly there, Henry. We actually see their father this time in this version. He's not vanished, he's actually there, but does he go through a lot for what he goes through. We do actually see one of the slashers get revealed, which was the insane priest that carved out the kid's eye. So there is graphic depictions of, not physical depictions of death of children, but you see dead bodies of children, so it's pretty fucked up, and welcomed for this type of film. I don't know, I'm still sort of confused on why certain killers do certain things. I get why they do it in this. It's sort of it depends on how the curse is, how Sarah Fear's quote-unquote curse happens to people, and then they go insane and start killing other people. And it is intimated here, but I don't know the rules, because certain slashers here only attack people that have blood, that are filled with the blood, or have blood sprayed on them from certain characters. But then I don't understand when they go insane, and it's a little bit of plot screw ups, but it's still rounded enough that you can not care. But it all serves a purpose, and the flat general storyline is pretty linear, and it makes sense for the most part. I think the little sort of tiny plot ends that of killer's motives in this don't make any sense, but whatever. I think altogether it does work as a film. So we are dealing with these kids in the first hour in 1666, and we find out that Sarah Fear is having a relationship with Hannah Miller. This is a burgeoning, lesbian relationship, and obviously this is something that's frowned upon back then, and especially where they are, there's any sort of malice that happens, or anything that bad's happening, they'll call it witchcraft or some dealing with the devil or stuff like that. I gotta wonder, back then, you gotta really think about this, and this is gonna be crude, but just anybody in general, like how resilient the human being is to procreate itself, because my God, I'm sure everybody's genitals, there's just how really clean could you have gotten back then? I'm sure you smelled like pig crap and urine and feces and stuff like that, and people were, I assume people still went down on each other back then. Like, I am such a prude because there's people that earn their Red Wings. Good for them. God bless you. But boy, oh boy, did people were really horny back then. I guess people are still horny back then. Yeah, yeah. They're still horny now. They'll do whatever. I guess so. I can imagine there's one scene where these two, there is a sex scene between two women, and I guess somebody spying at them through some trees. And I could just imagine there was some, if it was just some random, if it wasn't like a plot device that actually means something and not just some sort of lurid sexual thing, if it was just some random guy from the 1600s going, like, passing by and seeing two girls having sex, and you know how usually they're taught that that's evil, but then he has no idea, so it's just like, by God, why, my shorts have seen Medusa's face, for within my pantaloons, they are like stone. So that's my impersonation of a guy catching two women making out. So I think that in general, I think that the movie really works, especially in this first hour. That it's not boring. It's straight ahead going through. You see the fear of being caught out. There was genuine sequences where Kiana is really playing it well as this girl's conflicted with all these sort of religious dogma that has been shoved at them, saying, fucking just worship, don't do anything evil, worship, if you do anything evil, you're evil. So and she feels really bad because she realizes that she's gay. She's gay, she can't help it, and it must have been really fucking whack back then, especially in these super religious times. And so I think Kiana's character is really she does really well as Sarah, and then also as her other character that she plays in 1994 and in the following last hour of the film. Ashley Zuckerman is Solomon Good. He played the Sheriff Good in 1994, but he's so fucking good in this too. He's really, not to be corny with the words, but Solomon Good is a really interesting actor, and for some reason I thought it was another actor. I thought it was I don't know who the hell I thought it was, but he was very good in this. It was just so well done. George Fear, Randy Havens as the father, George Fear of Sarah, was really well done. Everybody was just so fucking good in this movie, and it was nice to see Julia Reelwald back as Lizzie. Obviously, she couldn't from 1994, but it was nice to see her as another character in here, and it was nice to see Fred Hetchinger as Isaac again. Sadie Sink makes a little cameo in here. I didn't realize that there was cameos from Stranger Things people in all these movies, especially in the first one. I didn't realize that. I did realize later on that was one of the characters from season 4 of Stranger Things, the girl that works with who works at that ice cream place. And then the second one, obviously, Sadie Sink, the redhead girl. I think it's really well done, especially the explanation of the catacombs and underneath the whole town. Really well done. Gruesome fucking gore in this that I was like not expecting. Although obviously been said from the first two films what happened to a character's appendage, it happens in this one, and it's just like, holy shit. When it happens, just like, yikes, this shit is gross. Even I was like, geez. And then so when it hops towards the future, and then we see the final culmination of everything of why we're learning these past elements, because usually when you see a horror film and it goes to a third movie, they usually, in a trilogy, they'll say, learn the reason why Jason started slashing people. Obviously, we learned in the first one, that's why. But just in general horror films where they go into a third film, like, let's say, Ginger Snaps or something, the werewolf movie. I love the first two movies. The second one I thought was great. And then I didn't see the third one because it goes back in time with the same characters. I'm like, I still don't give a fuck. I want to see what happens now, because what's happened has happened. You can't really kind of get... For me, I can't really watch prequels and be excited about it. Besides, I guess Better Call Saul is a good prequel, which defeats my my point here. But within horror films, you kind of sort of that they always sort of happen the same. They're always sort of cyclical, especially if they're in a certain type of genre. And in this, it was actually nice to see what was going on. Like, you actually learned something, as opposed to it just being some sort of cheap, hey, now we're slashing people in the 1600s. So it was cool to see this one, that it was a different type of genre in this one, that it was more of the paranormal. The first one is obviously paranormal but slasher, but this is a little bit more leaning towards olden times, witch frenzy and shit like that. And it has a solid, the solid latter half of the film is really good in back in 1994, and seeing you know, how these kids deal with this and trying to save the current era Hannah Miller from her affliction of being possessed. It's just really well done, and Lee Yaniak, just fucking kudos to her, this director who like really she did it, man. She's fucking good, and they did a great use of the Offspring music in this one. They didn't go as crazy as they did in the first film, where they had music every 5 fucking seconds, and obviously they didn't have music in the 1600s over and over like that. The music was good. It was sort of similar to the 1970s film in this one, as in they had that orchestral sound. But in the latter half, in the last hour of the film, obviously they went back to the standard jukebox 1990s music, and they did well with it. They weren't offensive. They did go a little bit crazy towards the last 10 minutes as the movie wrapped up with music, but the characters were still great. They brought back one minor character from the first film, the guy who keeps getting arrested, and he's funny in this. He serves as a funny character in this, and he has a great motive for being why he's there. It's just a solid film. It's really fucking solid. And even the guy who played the Baghead killer, the Camp Nightwing killer in the second one, like, he plays a real scumbag in this one. That guy's a very good actor. McCabe Sly as Matt Thomas. It's just a solid fucking trilogy. Like, it's a trilogy where each movie gets better and then ends on a high note. So, I mean, and obviously they always leave it open for another film, which I wouldn't mind watching, and I hope people actually are watching these films. I don't know if it's getting the love that it should, but it certainly is much better than a lot of the shit that you see coming out in theaters recently. And it's a solid effort, a solid horror film, slasher, gory, filled with curse words, sex, violence, all the shit that you want. But it's done really well. It's not insulting. And with that, I would give this one an 8 out of 10. Spying on two young ladies, sharing their love in the woods. As for a trilogy, I'd give it a fucking 9 out of 10. It was fun. I had fun with the characters, and then I think that it's really 9 out of 10. You know, finding that CD players are not the way of the future, so you try to sell even bulkier items. But it's a solid, like I said, it's a solid series. Definitely worth watching. Run to your Netflix and play this trilogy. I think it was interesting for them to have it over 3 weeks. I think that's probably the right model for this type of film, because it feels a little bit more fun to do that, to wait for these films. And I think you'll have a blast watching it. So with that, this has been the HorrorDeconstruction.
The HorrorDeconstruction.